Welcome, everybody, to what promises to be a very interesting discussion. I thought we could start off by actually checking with each of these gentlemen what, you know, creating these blockbusters, creating these cinematic universes, as the topic says, what, according to each of you, if I could begin asking that question, are the absolutely necessary pillars that go into making these these projects? Now there are lots of small things and many things that go into making these, but what are, according to each of you, what are the essential things that actually go into making this? So why don't I start with you, Jaikar?
I should have sat that side so that I get a little time. But hi guys, really happy to be out over here and with my friends out on the dais. I think it's a pretty interesting topic, which is why we said that it's going to be like a great session to really discuss and brainstorm various experiences. And to come to the point of what you're asking, I think, in my opinion, of course, there are a lot many things that actually make the cinematic world. But I would actually like to put my finger on the research and the design part of it, because that's definitely one of the very big aspects of creating a world. Because especially in VFX, all of us know that whenever we start a project, we always want to show the world that they have never seen before. Every time, that's what the aim is for, and to show something for the audience. Audience has evolved during the years. They have been exposed to fantastic, content, and so to really show them something very very new for the first time really means a lot of research and design. That's what I would say.
All right, research and design, very interesting. Srinivas, what would you sort of?
Yeah. So, So I think his experience, when you mentioned, he's talking about more Hollywood films. So, but in India, it's totally different. So, especially Indian filmmakers, it's majorly 2 points. One is that the budget. So they'll have a very less budget, but obviously we'll have a lot of good vision, but we don't have budget. So for me, how the handling that part, so bringing within the Indian budget and getting that Hollywood level quality, that is one of the biggest, I say, my unique talent, I guess. So,
frugal innovation.
So that's one. So maybe if you say, can I explain as an example, or maybe we can.
We could probably come to Sandeep, and then we could come back and explain. So, design and research. You were talking about
technology,
frugal budgets, and how you sort of use technology to get over that constraint. Sandeep?
Yeah, I would say mainly it's a pre-production where you have very cheap tools like pencils, and if you say digital tools like Unreal and all. So you can do a lot of pre-production, which is previous concept art, storyboarding, which helps to constrain the budget, helps to figure out what you want to do in R&D also. So more and more you do this, it's like a proof of concept. So you can actually take a mobile and go and shoot something and see if it works or not. So it's more you spend time in this cheaper process, which is the beginning, pre-production, you can be more organized and cost effective in the final stage where actual money gets spent.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got design and research. We've got budget constraints, Indian budget constraints, and how do we use technology to do that? And related to that, I think, Sandeep, is your point, that how do we use tools at the beginning of the process, which are far cheaper, to actually make the final output look good? Excellent. So why don't we sort of expand on each of those points? Jaikar, would you like to get into the more... And it'll be great if you can also sort of, you have worked on multiple projects. Yeah. If you could bring your personal experiences on those projects to make a point.
So maybe I can just talk about one of my very recent project that I have done, which is called Mickey 17. Anyone saw the film? Okay, not bad, few. So trailer, I'm sure many would have seen. So if you actually see Mickey 17, it was I was a visual effects supervisor on that for the Indian DNEG team. And basically the whole thing came up about the design of the whole snow planet that we had to really create. So the first time it just showed up that it's a snow planet, it's all white, so what's the big deal about it? But then we basically came up with, of course, Bon John, who is the director. He's fantastic director. So he kept like throwing like googlies at us. How is the atmosphere over there? How does the vehicles kind of move? And then of course the very famous creepers, as we call it. The design had been like extremely challenging, especially because, like I said before, all of us have been exposed to like so many crazy creatures that I don't think any creature right now people would see would be like good enough for people to like say, you know what, I'm seeing something new. So that was like extremely challenging for us, and especially with Bond when he was actually telling us that the creature needs to look cute, it needs to be like looking very vulnerable, and yet there are situations in the film where it's going to be like extremely aggressive. So we are like, how can a cute creature be aggressive? But then of course, like that's our job to like really come up with those kind of designs, and then that one leads to the other, and then we had to like obviously design another spaceship, which was again which has to be extremely functional. So when I was talking about the design part of it, like let's say a spaceship design, we have seen tons and tons of spaceships. Now a spaceship design, people just take it for granted that it has to look. We know how spaceships are, though none of us have traveled on that. And the point being that our biggest thing has been like the next step of design, which is the functionality. So we wanted to make sure that, right, everyone knows how spaceships are, no one has traveled, but everyone is familiar with that. So then we said, okay, what is everyone not familiar with is the functionality of a spaceship. So then we went into like the studies of submarines and all that stuff, and said, okay, how within the submarines, how things would be, going in a little more detail of, uh, the pressure, how the pressure kind of works over there, what needs to be there, and then how people would eat in that, how people would sleep in that, and those kind of design research. And then that's how you start putting the pieces together, and that became a really believable place that people could actually live over there, and then makes your audience and yourself believe that, yeah, you know what, we can believe that people can be sent from here in like hundreds and thousands of people can be like sent. So that was, I would say, like one of an aspect of the world build that we have gone through, and maybe another very different aspect of world building. Of course, our worlds, or the cinematic worlds, have the generic world in terms of like the geography of it. Then we have all the creatures of that, and talking about creatures, one of my biggest other project was Venom, which I'm sure has been like very popular. One of my favorites with Tom Hardy that we had done.
You don't just get to create VFX blockbusters, you also learn basic trivia. So, how do a
Absolutely.
snake's jaws move?
Yes.
Perfect. Srinivas, you were talking about budget constraints, which I think is very relatable, and how do you use technology so frugal innovation. So why don't you speak a little bit more about that?
Maybe I can say that from the beginning, I can tell one example of Indiran the robot. So in that, if you see that we have a huge budget limitation, but director wants that quality, like highest CG, full CG character. So then the main thing what it worked for me is like a director listens, understands what we are, what I'm trying to, what the VFX requirement. So one is that the pre-production what we did, that is one of the major thing. It actually helped us to get the budget bring down, so we don't want to waste any other thing. And another thing is when they're designing the character, so especially if you see that robo character, he always wears glasses. So then I told that is my requirement. So because we cannot create ice. The ice is a life, even though robot, but still that life, because we always talking about a humanoid. So that ice, creating ice is like almost like 25% of my VFX budget will go there. So then I told him, then he immediately told, okay, I can work it with that. So he always wears the glasses. So that's one problem solved. Then after that, I have an issue with the hair. Because hair, if you see that hair simulation, everybody knows that it's very tough. That those days, it's like I'm talking about 2007, 2006. So then, okay, you're asking too much, but still I can work it out. So he made a short hair. If you see his character, robot that last, he's very short hair. It never moves. And he added one white, so get that character. Okay, that's nice. Then after that, I asked, sir, after a few days, I still had some more issues, sir. Okay, what is that? So the flowing clothes, sir. So how can I work with a villain without flowing clothes? Because villain has that nice, all the Hollywood heroes will have that flowing clothes.
Thank you. That was, so interesting that at the beginning you mentioned about how a pair of Ray-Bans solved a VFX problem. And then you actually went on to create digidoubles that people didn't notice, and which I think is, I've been saying for many years that the success of VFX is in the fact that people don't realize that what they're seeing is VFX.
Yeah, invisible.
So, the invisible art. So, Sandeep, pre-production, and I completely agree. I think one of the, along with design and research and technology, a really, really important component. So how are there any particular experiences that jump out for you in your long career about how this has solved problems or how that's helped create something special?
So, there is a vision which is the final destination, and you have the pre-production. So for achieving that vision, a journey we have to cross. The journey in between is just a deconstruction of the process. So there's a management, there's a technological thing, there's a creativity. So that's where VFX, mostly we all have been contributing. But there have always been compromise because we have bypassed the first process, which is pre-production. So when we don't set a clarity in the vision, things becomes abstract. And then you get brief like, kuch acha banao. So that's that's the abstract thing we get. So you need to somehow calibrate with the director or shape his vision, help him to shape his vision. So nowadays, more and more people have started giving emphasis on pre-production so that they get vision, concept art and all this things, and they realize, oh, this is how it is. Or they go with another iteration of concept, so get it better and better. Then it becomes easy for us to just technically break it down. The creativity is another thing which is very subjective. So that's where we need a director with a clear vision, so they give us a clear thing. Objective things we can easily achieve. So my one example, I worked on a recent movie called Agni, which is on Amazon, about Mumbai firefighters. So most of my work has been realistic, where people don't know VFX. So I like to work on invisible VFX, where people don't say nice VFX, they don't see VFX, and they enjoy the movie. So Agni was one movie where opportunity, because it's a realistic movie in a very documentary kind of zone. And we were getting support from Mumbai firefighting department. So we know that so many people are watching and we cannot do something wrong. So throughout the film, we had to create fire which look fire. Obviously, we have to shoot in a very controlled environment because fire is a hazard. And we were shooting during rainy season, so it's all covered set. So we had to do everything very carefully, and then we go into physics of fire, how it works, how fire starts. So when there is a black smoke, when there is a white smoke. So again, research and development is very, very important to know. So when we started doing, when you need to show it look like heat and fire without showing fire. So we created heat haze, ambers flying and all those things. So it's just feeling of fire being there. That's what we were trying to create. In some places, because I was going with logic, a director said, "Arey, leave your logic, I want magic." So then what to do? Fire dalo. So I started putting fire. And then after watching everything, say, okay, bring back your logic. So then eventually it came, and when they saw the film, entire film, they said that this has to be in theater. So everybody liked it because they didn't feel that there was a CG involved in. And again, firefighters, they all enjoyed it. They felt that it connected with them. So that's what it is. Like when we do a lot of pre-production, we know what should be the final result, and it should not, because a lot of audience has a strong memory queue of things which they've seen. So we can't use another film as a reference. We have to look at documentaries and all for real reference, or shoot something to get the real kind of thing and then integrate. So that's how I approach things. So, but I needed to have a very clear thing from the beginning and clear vision of the final result.
But I think you were lucky you had that clear vision, because for a lot of aspiring producers, if there are any, and directors out here, the most common brief you'll hear is kuch alag dikhao, and the most common feedback will be yaar maza nahi aaya. So I think that's a significant VFX challenge that we have to deal with.
I think our industry has slightly progressed from Maza Nahi Aaya. From there, I think we are getting better notes and better thoughts from directors, which is great. I just wanted to touch base on Brahmastra. Since previously I was just talking about some Hollywood projects and like what Srini mentioned. When I was just doing Brahmastra, it was never that okay, it's an Indian film. So kuch bhi chalega. That was never the thing. It was, in fact, it was the reverse. It's an Indian film. The visual effects has to be like better than any Hollywood film. That was my approach on that. And the point what I was just saying was the biggest thought that I was just sharing with the whole direction team was you're not going to get phenomenal shots which people will remember when you actually go on the day of shoot and say, let us create a phenomenal shot. No. You have to like design your shot which looks phenomenal, ways and months and weeks ahead in pre-visualization, like how he said. And then on the day of shoot, it has to be only execution. There's no thought on, oh, let us put over here, camera over here, kaisa lagega and all, nothing. You have to like just be only on execution. Part of which again was like we were shooting the climax where the whole earth is like crumbling and one of the most complex sequences where everything was like breaking down and all. Initial thoughts was okay, let us just do some practical stuff, roll some stones and all that stuff. I said nothing of it is going to like sustain towards the end, because on the day of shoot you put all those stones and all, you might be happy that we did some SFX, but once you see it on film you're not going to like it on your own. So let's save that money and effort, and then we design our entire scene on maybe we kind of designed it on platforms, 2 platforms which were held with hydraulic springs, and so that when someone's actually there's like an earthquake, I didn't want my actor to act what an earthquake would be on a stage. It would be like very strange. I said no acting.
You should feel it.
I want your body to like react to a moving piece of earth. That is when it's going to be believable. Even if it is Mr. Bachchan, I don't think he can act for like an earthquake happening over there. So when we discussed with him, he said, yeah, I think that sounds great. So then we came up with this hydraulic platforms. And it was like so simple that we had to like just move the hydraulic platforms, and the actors really had to like really take care of a natural phenomena of creating their balance. And that becomes your basis for go back and then just create all that. So I was just saying in terms of how you can actually just save money, like what Srini actually said, not do unnecessary SFX, it is not required.
No,
do
attention
more
to
planning,
detail,
that kind of
and
stuff.
that also leads to a great product. It doesn't just save money.
Exactly.
So Srini, one thing that I wanted to therefore check with you, since you mentioned budget specifically. So in these sort of intervening years, have you felt that the budgets are sort of getting a little better? And Sandeep, you can also jump in here. Have you felt that today directors are probably, like Jaikar said, integrating VFX more at the time that they're thinking about the movie rather than doing it as an afterthought after they've shot it?
Yeah. So definitely, totally things have changed. If you see that after pandemic, there is a one big wave is like OTTs took over the entire film industry. So, and another problem with our film industry, especially in abroad, because of the lot of Hollywood strike happened, and then a lot of Hollywood movies are production stopping. And India, what is happening is at present, because a lot of new content they have tasted, well, especially in the pandemic time because of OTT, a lot of other foreign films and other content. So now they want a lot of good content. That is one thing. So, and another thing is nobody wants to go to theater if it's a regular movie. So they want something, all the big heroes, big producers, they want something should be there in their film, like what is as an exaggeration means, like visual effects.
Right, they want a spectacle.
So the spectacular feel. So every actor, previously, they don't want any VFX or anything, because entire our film industry, especially in India, driven by actors,
Yes.
not the directors. So now the actors realized if I just come in, nobody will going to watch. I need something extra power to add up. That's where the visual effects. So now a lot of budgets are increased, and they are insisting like, okay, we need some visual effects based exaggerated.
Brilliant,
things.
brilliant.
So that is a one good
Change that has
change
happened.
happen, and obviously now they are giving good support for us to. Yeah.
Super. And Sandeep, do you feel that the more directors are therefore understanding the potential of VFX and therefore doing things like pre-prod and design far earlier in the process and actually starting those things? I mean, by definition, they're supposed to be early in the process, but they're actually starting to do those things.
Yeah, for sure. Like as Srini said, cinema is like a long format amusement park, and if you look at history of cinema, VFX has been part of cinema from the beginning. So then storytelling came, and when storytelling removed VFX from it, OTT came to take the story back to OTT. So cinema is left with again amusement. So you need to have spectacle in theater to draw audience. And directors have started understanding they need to give a spectacle with a story. So emotion, story is important, but they need spectacle also. Otherwise, there's no point going to theater. So they started realizing VFX is so important, and for that, because we are in India, we need to be cost effective. We need to plan. And from past, India has been hub for all international VFX work. So our talent has already been groomed to execute things. So it's matter of us to plan ourselves, organize. It's a management part of it because technology we have, skills we have. So how do we use it? That means you need to be organized so that you are planned, and then you can use this resource pool which has been catering to international Hollywood studios and Hollywood films, and deliver world-class stories from India, made in India.
Brilliant. And I hope that happens. So I think we're almost sort of, towards the second half of the session where I thought that I'd just check with each of the panelists. Now, we've spoken about what are the pillars for creating these blockbusters of the cinematic universes, but that's now. Now, obviously, our industry is sort of, in general, the whole filmmaking business has gone through a lot of change technologically and business model-wise, both. What individually, what do each of you think, if you were to do a bit of crystal ball gazing, what would you think would be the sort of breakout developments, a couple of those developments each in the next 5 years that you think are important? So Sandeep, why don't I start with you? That in the next 5 years, do some crystal ball gazing for us.
5 years or 10 years down the line, I don't see technology will keep evolving in at very, very exponential rate. But people who are using the technology, more than just using technology, they need to have that OCD for doing each thing deeply, like with a passion, doing it perfectly. So it's not just technology will give you result. You need to have an OCD for a good work. So that's what they have to look at every department and see, kind of like learn new things, become multi-talented. So it helps you to visualize bigger things. Technology will keep coming and helping you.
Become Steve Jobs.
Yeah. Not Steve Jobs, but yeah.
Close. All right. Okay. Srini.
Yeah. Actually, for me, I can say there is a totally different era. Like so far what we have, and it's like I can say in the two factors. One is AI, it's one involved, and another one is that we had a very big issue with the what happened in the Hollywood and even in our film industry, especially because of the OTT. So because I'm talking about only the film,
Right.
so film. So now the my point is AI point of view, because AI came and it is going to be there obviously. So even though I have used AI in my film to make it more deliver the product. In that, I can mention that whatever I delivered, I have not even used one visual effects artist in that. Only that final, some very basic comp work. So I've used all the people which they worked in that. They are not visual effects artists, but they produced visual effects. So there is a lot of changes happening. So far, what we are thinking created pipelines for the visual effects are going to be 80% of things are going to change. That's what I'm
interesting. That's
saying.
and do you
80%.
see things getting more automated? Do you see these things as more aiding the artists to create, or do you think that these things will therefore create, like you said, that you
Yeah.
employed people who were not artists but yet who delivered creative work?
Yeah, it's basically we need to see one thing always will be there. Other thing will go off. What is will go off is like all the repetitive jobs. So first you just need to know if I'm doing the one thing, if another person able to do exactly the same thing, that means that is ultimately AI will going to take over. But creative is not that. So if I say something about one book or one comment, so I'll tell about my feeling and my way of I express in different way. But the another person says he will use his emotion and his creation and he will do something else. That will be differs. Like each person tell totally different way. That means that is a creative work. That never changes. So we need to see in our workflow, 80% of the things, what I understand, is like only repetitive jobs. That will go off.
Those will go, but the core business of creativity will remain and probably will be enhanced
Yeah, will
by
definitely
these
enhance.
by these.
So
tools.
now all the 20% people will have a more advantage. They can spend more time on the creative. So the quality of the product is going to be faster, like a good quality, and it will be able to produce very fast with the good content because a lot of AI is going to support us. But in the meantime, if you compare with the existing visual effects pipeline,
That's going to be completely upended.
completely abandoned, like things will be totally changed. And another thing which I like to point out is here, because since so many years I'm trying to compete with Hollywood. That is what we, especially my journey, try to see, because that's always whenever my film comes in the theater, next immediately one Hollywood film comes, so people will say, okay, that film has a lot of good VFX, but they never think that is a 1,500 crores film and this is a
True.
not even 100 crores. So, but that is going to change now. How? Because when I did this Indian 2 that AI film, there they didn't even know exactly what is happening in the AI, and they don't know what I have used the technology. So what my point is here, because earlier without AI, they are definitely 10 years ahead in terms of the quality, the technology which they have, equipment which they have, which we couldn't.
So
use
we
it.
will level the playing field
Now
with AI.
now we are already level. So in fact, if you say in that other part like Indian 2, we have even crossed.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
that is the one thing which waves is the one important thing. It's in the right time, I guess. So now we are equally leveled with them. Now whatever we are creating, whatever we are going to do, is like a world.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
that is the one point I thought of.
Thank you. Jaikar, do you have any sort of what are your predictions?
Predictions. I have a very different, thought and prediction. I would think that India is going to become a superpower in terms of visual effects industry, and also in terms of Indian content, which is going to like show up in the world multifold. Because I think we have seen like a lot of superheroes. We have seen a lot of Western visual effects and stuff, which I also personally feel there is some sort of a saturation somewhere. But I feel like in terms of storytelling, India has amazing like stories to like tell, and the world has not seen anything yet. And I think this is almost a point of tipping scale, I would say, where like what Srini was talking and what Kamal was talking about in terms of the technology kind of being on our side, making a level field for players to like really be. And of course, like when we actually tie all that stuff with the kind of stories that India has to like really put out to the world, I think it's amazing. And the right time, like what Srini was saying, I completely agree with him. I'm not saying this just because I'm sitting over here, but Waves, I think it's like a great initiative towards that, to like really bring all the creative to a concentrated point to like really take this whole creative force forward. That's what my prediction says.
Fantastic. Well, I think we're almost towards the end of the session, but thank you to each of you for sort of, actually taking us through. I'm sure it's been very sort of, enlightening for all the people here as well. We do have some time for a small Q&A. So if there is anybody, apart from this gentleman in the first row in the golf cap, only the gentleman in the first row in the golf cap.
First of all, great panel, and of course, I'm talking amongst friends. Thanks very much for the work that the three of you did in the judging of thousands of people's finalists for VFX, which I think has opened our eyes to the fact that there's a lot more to be done with a larger community. So that's my first point as a thank you. If you look at the title, it's Universes. And there are just a couple of producers in India that are looking to create large franchised universes, right? And I think that visual effects is the answer to creating that. I mean, no universes have been created. The British Film Fund did the Harry Potter franchise. In fact, many of the companies from DNEG to Framestore to MPC happened out of that. In the US, it's happened. In New Zealand, it's happened. I think now with the incentives available through the central government and the appetite that 3 or 4 or 5 large production houses have, it's a perfect time to talk about creating those universes, because the universes don't just make a film, they create a 360-degree monetization ability, right, with everything else. And I think it's a great example for having, gentlemen on the stage. How do you think that is going to happen? What do you think, just hypothetically, because we have people here who are, getting into the industry.
Yeah.
What has worked in creating the initial franchises that you worked on?
Yeah.
What's the starting point? Of course, we know every film requires a script, blah, blah. But in creating these universes, to create our own Marvel universe, Marvel type, DC type, with the stories that you talked about, Jaikar, what's the starting point? What do you think? If you were to sit and become an advisor to someone creating a universe, how would you advise that? I think that's the question I'll ask.
My experience on this is when first time Bahubali. So when we started doing Bahubali, so we never thought it's like we want to go into the second part and further. But we have, when we started creating the world, so Firefly Studio, Sanat, so he suggested that, okay, so why can't we do exactly the same thing? This has a very long advantage, like this has an opportunity to create that. So then he started creating the world building. It's called world building, world environment, basically. So then we created a Bible for the Bahubali. So in that, we, the way he started asking, the way he started getting that, preparing the Bible, so he started director and the story writer and all the actors. So they started asking, even though it's not there in the film, like how that time, like Bahubali, Maheshmati time, what are they eating? How that kind of environment and what crops they are making, nothing to do with the film, but to build the characters and the environment. So they started asking almost like 2-3 weeks continuously with the director, like for the entire 2,000, 3,000 questions about this world, what they created. So even though director has not created the entire thing for that particular story, but they created, based on that, they created the entire characters, designing and worlds. So that actually helped producer Sobhu Garu to get the next, another entering into the different areas. Like he went into the different stories now, animatics he created and animation, and then now he's preparing animation, I guess. So all this, still even now, so everybody follows that Bible. Even if they go to gaming, so they know that what is it.
I think you can take this question outside. Yeah. The panelists are here. Even Sandeep wants to speak on that, but we can sort of keep it for later. But thank you. Thank you again to the panelists.
Thank you.